This is Master Yoda, and listening to Whoobazoo.com. Yes.
Welcome to Marathon. May I help you?
Yes.
How may I help you?
You can start by wiping that king dumbass smile off your rosy king cheeks. Then you can give me a king automobile, a Datsun, king Toyota, king Mustang, king Buick, 4 king wheels and a seat.
I really don't care for the way you're speaking to me.
And I really don't care for the way your company left me in the middle of king nowhere with king keys to a king car that isn't king there. And I really didn't care to king walk down a king highway and across a king runway to get back here to have you smile at my king face. I want a king car right now.
May I see your rental agreement?
I threw it away.
Oh, boy.
Oh boy, what?
You're...
The booth. I share my world when in the booth. The booth. This is all I do when in the booth. The booth. A set of headphones, one microphone, and yo, hold the phone, I'm in the booth. The booth. I share my world when in the booth. The booth. This is all I do when in the booth. The booth. I got one microphone, flow glitz in the zone. Yeah, I'm the load me up, lock me in. I don't care, box me in, cause the booth got me in this brand new zone. Plug me in, turn it up, blitz gon' burn it up. Might start melting down the soundproof phone. It's one way, so it's one mode. Booth on the bus whenever I'm on the road. Lock in for days and anything goes. It's been 7 days, the same clothes. Still flowing for them dudes sitting outside on the blocks in the booth, but I'm spitting outside of the box. I know where the digits at, where the lyrics at. I ain't never losing, so I ain't gotta get it back. Got commercial music, but I still know how to spit a rap. I'm like the trees on my boots, I grew from the roots. If I'm lying, I'm flying, but I'm the truth. Only one way, my mobile on Rome. I'm underground in the booth. The booth. I share my world when in the booth. The booth. This is all I do when in the booth. The booth. I got a set of headphones and one microphone. And yo, hold the phone, I'm in the booth. The booth. I share my world when in the booth. The booth. This is all I do when in the booth. The booth. I got one microphone. Yeah, I'm in the zone. Kel Spencer's in the booth.
Was he African?
African.
No. He was American, and he was like you. He looked just like you.
He was Jewish.
Just like
okay.
you.
Jew.
Okay.
It's an odd crime for a Jew to
Yeah,
commit.
I'm pretty docile.
Okay, so we have an African Jew wearing a hoodie.
No, you don't.
No.
No, that's not what I said. Is that what you heard me say? I said he looked like you. Do you look like an African Jew?
No, I look like a cop.
Yeah.
He was Caucasian.
All right, your boy, Sinister One, broadcasting live for the City of Champions. You were listening to the booth. Sorry about that. My mixer actually froze up. It was almost like we had a sound that was going through. I didn't hear it on our end. You would have probably heard it out there in podcast live radio land, but it looked like something was just going out at a high pitch. We didn't hear it on our end, but I saw it on this end at the mixer, so we just had to do a system reboot. We're back here. We apologize. Let my guy say hello real quick so we can get right into this stuff. I'm going to RSquared first.
Yeah, we're here, ready to go.
Ken Diesel?
Lock, cock, ready to rock.
All right, big thanks to our guest last week, Deana Martin, for coming on the show to talk about the Baby It's Cold Outside lyric change. Also, big shout out to Tony Arnold, who owns Whoobazoo, his wife Michelle Arnold, for helping the New England Patriots running back Sony Michele to assist with getting a homeless family a fully furnished apartment just prior to Thanksgiving. Great stuff. We're going to get right into it because we got a lot of stuff that we had the show all set for today. And then we had a lot of breaking news that went down like today with things that we're talking about. So we're going to get right into it. If you're in the chat, love to see you. And the first topic of the night is a table topic. Last week, Massachusetts became the first state to ban flavored tobacco and vaping products, a multi-billion-dollar industry which brings a ton of tax revenue to the state. The question is how will we make up for that loss of tax? And that's what my question is to these guys across the board, especially Ken. He deals in law. We're going to lose a lot of taxes. I'm going to let Ken Diesel go first on this topic tonight.
Well, I think this is one of those things where they refer to as discretionary income. If people are not paying for flavored tobacco products, they're going to find other sin taxes to do. Other tobacco products, alcohol, gambling. I really don't think it's a big issue. I think it's one of those things where, again, it's a make you feel good issue without anything really changing. If you want to attack the chronic addiction to tobacco, especially among the youth, I think it's a very good idea. But this is basically, make everyone pat themselves on the back that did something without doing anything. If you want to ban tobacco products, ban them. If you don't, you've got to put more money into prevention, more money into treatment, and more money into education.
RSquared, anything to add to that?
I agree. I don't think this is a big deal.
Which is funny because we talked about where are they going to make up this tax. Governor Baker actually just announced this week they're planning to hike the gas tax yet again, talking about it may push the price of gas up over the $4, close to the $5 mark, in funding for the Green Air Bill, which will also help fund future MBTA projects to update the outdated old system. Here's the thing. If Massachusetts state legislature wasn't taking all of this money from the T to cover up losses, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in with the MBTA right now. They borrowed money from the T to cover overages of the Big Dig, and nobody ever answered for the criminal shit that went on. I hate to say that, excuse me. For the criminal crap that went on with the Big Dig, there should have been a lot of people in jail. We had a woman who lost her life from faulty ceiling panels because the low bid cement screws was not the correct screws, and it's just tough. So I'm going to let Ken Diesel talk about that real quick. You're familiar with the Big Dig, and
very simply, the Big Dig was the old joke was, what's the difference between the Big Dig and a black hole? One is a hole in the space-time continuum with a gravitational pull that's so strong nothing escapes us, not even light, and the other one's a dead star. Yeah, I mean, the problem with the MBTA and the Department of Transportation and a lot of the stuff of borrowing money from Peter to pay Paul has been a major problem, and I really don't think you can blame one particular thing. Yes, there was a lot of you're talking about the ceiling tiles, but that was actually covered by the insurance policy that the general contractor had. But this is, a show unto itself. We can talk about the budgetary problems in Massachusetts, and one of the biggest problems that wants to talk about it was Baker's reduction in the fees and taxes for certain corporations, which created this budgetary mess. And that's the thing he isn't talking about. But issue for another day.
All right, RSquared, anything you want to add to that?
I agree. It's clear mismanagement.
All right. Brookline becomes the first town to ban oil and gas pipes in new buildings. This is a big deal. So any new building that is to be built in the town of Brookline, who was also the first to ban plastic bags, and Brookline's also the first to ban snowblowers because snowblowers, they break the decibel law. So you can't even use snowblowers in the town of Brookline. Everybody has to get plows. I think it's kind of crazy for that, but that's how it is. But this is a big deal. Oil and gas pipes banned in new buildings that are to be built, which means most of these buildings now will be green buildings. They'll be solar, and they'll have to use alternative ways to heat their building. Do you see anything like that down in Florida? Do you have that type of stuff where they're banning oil and gas pipes in the buildings down there in Florida, RSquared?
Yeah, there's a lot of similar measures going on with new growth, especially in areas with population issues and pollution issues. Miami's got a lot of that going on because that's where a lot of the major development is as far as urban planning goes. Other communities have done things where, required certain sustainment innovations, pollution limitations, runoff limitations, that type of thing. So they're making an effort. The problem is right now it's all up to the local communities, and so developers can play the communities off of each other because people want the development, they want to do proper sustainability measures, but you can't have both sometimes. It's just like when companies threaten to move from one part of the country to another because they can get cheaper labor and get waivers to the environmental protections. It's going to be the same thing with these developments. So unless it becomes statewide and nationwide, we're going to have problems with competition for development and resources.
Yeah, because none of the stuff up here is, it's the first of its nature up here, so I'm dying to see how this is going to work out. Ken, anything to add to that? Because you're not too far from Brookline. You're in Melrose.
No, I'm not. In Brookline, this is kind of a very interesting thing about why they're... Remember, this only deals with new construction. It's a very important issue. It does not deal with existing construction or rehab projects.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a building where they're gutting and simply, basically, in the shell of the building, it won't affect that. I really don't know how it's going to affect or how they're going to heat these places. Well, what are you going to do? The other question is, was natural gas and other gas, affected? That was the big question. I still haven't answered. It said no gas and oil, but when I talked to some friends of mine in Brookline, the way they read it was only liquid oil, like heating oil, did not cover natural gas. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. Like I said, this is all new. It's going to definitely be new technology. They're probably getting a humongous tax break for these buildings to be built like this. So it's going to be something to definitely keep our eye on. Like I said, usually you hear things here first on the booth, and then when it becomes a big deal, when now they're building 8, 9, or 10 buildings with this, then everybody will realize it and want to make a big stink over or whatever they want to talk about it. Also on the table topic, we're talking about something. We've got one that went down today. We had a building that was evacuated for CO carbon monoxide. One of the people had high numbers of carbon monoxide in their bloodstream. They went to the hospital. Several others had to go to the hyperbariatric chamber at Mass General. There's some process that they're supposed to do every morning where they mix hydrogen, ammonia, and bleach and all this stuff. So they're not sure what may have caused this process, but this building will be closed until further notice. 114 employees were taken out of there. And I guess a few people had left work early in the morning complaining of flu-like symptoms. So, this goes into this table topic that we're talking about businesses following the rules and making sure they're not mixing chemicals. And everybody knows what they're supposed to, because we actually had 3 in less than a month here, and one person did die at the Buffalo Wild Wings where he mixed some chemicals and he actually lost his life. And the thing is here is, we tell people, if you have kids or if you work a job, every job has a legal responsibility to teach you where your MSDS paperwork is or your booklet. Every workstation is supposed to have that MSDS on there ready and available. The reason why it has to be in book format is because if the building has no power, the firemen have to be able to get that MSDS book so they know what chemicals are on the property and what type of extinguishers they need to use on that product. Because some products, like when you come to the Logan, you can't put foam on one product, you can't use water on another. So you have to be very careful. But this is a thing that, and RSquared can attest to this in the military. These are things that you have to be trained on every year. You have to sign off on it. One of these goes into your personal file, and another one goes to be filed at the company, and another one gets sent off to whoever, the EPA or whoever. It's a big issue, and employees need to know their rights and their rules regarding these compliances and regulations. We've got a UPS driver right now who's just awarded $47,000 because he actually blew the whistle on UPS. UPS, their trucks contain the device, the IE, I forget what they call it, but what it does is it monitors their driving record, their times and stuff, because they have to take breaks at certain times and things like that. And this vehicle, this unit wasn't working. He refused to take this truck out. He didn't want to be accused of falsifying records and documentation. They fired him. He blew the whistle, $47,000. I'm going to let RSquared go first because he was in the military. You know all about these things where you just talked about how you didn't want to drive over in Korea. You didn't want that, you turned that down. So you're aware of this type of stuff.
Training, the bottom line is training and safety are no joke. And, there are certainly new and improved ways to maintain training records, to maintain training certification. There can't be any lapses in this area. There shouldn't be lapses in any area, quite frankly, but this is an area where the danger is so serious and so severe that there have to be, duplicate, triplicate efforts to make sure that people have the right guidance, the right rules, the right training, the right equipment. And so if you're mixing chemicals, obviously the requirements there, number one, people have to know what to mix and how to store them and that type of thing, but there has to be proper ventilation more than anything else. How do you dispose of these products, whether it's waste or whether it's a completed product, whatever you're doing, there's a proper way to to dispose of it, and there's a proper way to conduct ventilation. And if you're not doing it properly, you're putting everybody at risk. And so, if it's found that somebody was doing that wrong, then there needs to be the most serious of consequences. If there was an equipment failure, then that's another problem. But in a building like what you're mentioning, obviously you've got multiple organizations in one building. If it was an HVAC problem, then that's going to be one thing. If it was because of this organization that was using chemicals improperly, then that's going to be a totally different issue.
And you're familiar with the military too, because they couldn't give a lot of information. How common is it for the military to have contracts in these type of things in buildings where people may not even really know that there's a military contract and work like this being done? Does that happen quite a bit?
Yeah, but what you have to realize is that's not a military operation. What that is the military does a tremendous amount of contracting with private organizations, defense contractors, research organizations, whatever, and they exist all over the country. And these are private organizations, private companies that bid on the contracts. And a lot of them who win it also use subcontractors. So you've got these private organizations, these private businesses that have contracts with the military and with other things. It's not like they're only doing one thing in some of them. So, it wasn't like the United States Army or some other DOD component was in that building. You had a contractor that was, X Corporation that was doing some of these tests or had the contract to do some of these things on behalf of the military. What I could tell you is I certainly don't know what that project was, but there's thousands of them all across the country, so it could be anything. Because the military can't do all of its own research. It has to contract out with people who are, using cutting-edge technology and cutting-edge processes and things like that to develop products, and they do a tremendous amount of joint development that way. But what I can say is one of the things that's routine in these contracts is adherence to environmental and safety regulations. So if this was a military business, I think you said on the fourth floor, yes. Then those safeguards would be in the contract. Now, whether the contractor followed them or not, I don't know. And again, there's a large possibility that this had nothing to do with that fourth floor business anyway.
Ken, are you familiar with any of this stuff, and have you seen this in the courtroom?
Oh, yeah. A lot of this has to do with what they call environmental hazards. And a lot of the times you're dealing with multiple entities. First of all, you've got the landlord of the building that was in. That's number one. Then you have the various tenants, depending on what they were doing. Then you have the HVAC contractors and stuff. Doesn't mean that's where the problem originated.
Exactly. They were saying
it originated someplace else.
And the scary thing is in Boston, you're required to have carbon monoxide detectors, but this is one of these older buildings where it's grandfathered in. It doesn't have to have the hardwired carbon monoxide detectors, number one. Because people were asking that question right off the bat. That was the first thing I asked. I'm like, why didn't it have detectors? Because it's grandfathered.
They're grandfathered in.
I think that law should change. We have to put, if my home insurance comes out here, they want us to have carbon monoxide detectors in our home. So why wouldn't an insurance have a corporation make sure that they have those installed? It's not much to have them hardwired in.
No, it's not. And even the ones that are battery operated, I've got two in my apartment myself. They're short money. You can put them at Target, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco. They're very, very inexpensive.
And the scary thing also about the story is when the fire department got there, they didn't even know what was going on. They just had an unresponsive person. And what happened was they sent that person off to the hospital, Salem Hospital, and then Salem called the fire company back and said, whoa, hey, we've got somebody with carbon monoxide poisoning. What's going on there? And that changed the whole. That's a very scary situation because the firemen didn't even know what they were walking into, and they were already in the building taking in that carbon monoxide. So we could have had a very serious situation. But again, we're just letting people know if you have a teenager who works at like a McDonald's or a Burger King or something, just ask your teen. Just ask them. Say, hey, did you get your MSDS training, your awareness trainings or whatever? Because like I said, a lot of time these businesses are short-staffed. The manager will just sign everybody's name to it, and just send it all in like he's doing his job. The problem is that nobody ever thinks that this is going to happen at their place of business. So I just want parents out there to just be aware. Ask your kid if he works in, like a CVS, anywhere with his chemicals. You've got to know this. You've got to ask your child, and we just want you to know. In national news, we've got some breaking news and we've got some other news. I'm going to let RSquared get into it. GOP Republican Duncan Hunter, who had claimed witch hunt, is now pleading guilty to misusing campaign funds. Just another disgrace, a black eye on the Republicans. I'm going to let RSquared get into that real quick.
Yeah, Representative Hunter from California has been on the radar for multiple times, let's just say, and all for financial impropriety and these type of things. So this wasn't his first go-around with authorities. This is the first time that he's going to be convicted, though, and that's an important change, because people need to understand that you can't get away with this stuff no matter who you are and who you're friends with and that type of thing. In this particular case, it was interesting because Representative Hunter was very close to the Trump campaign. And when he found himself on the wrong end of an investigation into campaign financial impropriety, he was following the Trump playbook with, this is a witch hunt, this is a hoax, it was the same thing, because he saw that it was working for the president on various things that he was speaking about. But the authorities, kept going. They uncovered the evidence, and I guess Hunter must have hired the right attorneys, because after fight, they finally took a look at the evidence together and realized that there was no way that he could properly claim that certain expenditures were campaign expenditures. For example, he was paying his kids' dental bills out of campaign funds. There is no way you could ever link your kids' medical or anybody in your family's medical bills to the campaign, unless, of course, they got hurt on the campaign trail, maybe.
Fake news.
Yeah, exactly. They were calling it fake news. He was using campaign funds to pay his kids' tuition to private schools, because he was sending them to private schools. Well, guess what? There's no way in heck you could ever claim that is a campaign expense. He apparently was using money for illicit romantic encounters on the campaign trail. Well, those were certainly campaign related, because they were not with his wife and they were while he was traveling, but they were not appropriate campaign expenditures. I don't think that's what you call vote cultivation. So that was impropriety. And there were some other ones. It's not worth going through the list, but those were some of the major ones, and it really amounted to significant amounts of money, as you can imagine, with school tuitions and medical bills and that type of thing. So he's pleading guilty. And, at the end of the day, he's going to lose his congressional seat. And I don't know what his district is likely to do, but this is not a political issue. These things have nothing to do, or should have nothing to do, with politics. This is about ridding corruption, as best we can out of the system. And when with these guys, they seem to think that they can serve for life. They seem to think they could do whatever they want. And it didn't start with President Trump's election. He's just, a bad example for people to follow. But it is really a major victory, in my opinion, when we see these elected officials being held accountable. I don't care what party they're from. I don't care what state they're from. I want the country to see that people will be, because this has to stop. This aspect of our politics has to stop.
Anything to add to that, Ken?
Nope. I think RSquared covered it incredibly well, as usual.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this one we're going to get into real quick, blow through this. We got to get into our entertainment booth real quick. Frozen 2 retained the top spot at the box office, while Marvel dropped the teaser trailer for Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow with a May 2020 release starring Stranger Things' David Harbour, who you guys know from Stranger Things, big actor on that show. He'll be the Red Guardian. Looks like the villain of the film will be the Taskmaster. Robert Downey Jr. is back as Tony Stark. And here's a big one. William Hurt will reprise his role as Thunderbolt Ross, who is from the Hulk comic books. The reason why this is good, because Thunderbolt Ross was in the Hulk films, which is part of Universal. It's not in the Sony or the Fox or the MCU, but they do use Marvel, so it's great to see him back, because there's a rumor of a Wolverine Hulk movie, which would be Alpha Flight would be part of that. Also, the trailer dropped for James Bond, A Time to Die. Ken said in our chat before the show, he said he was shaken but not stirred over the trailer, which I found pretty funny. I actually like the trailer because it looks like the return of the woman that Bond was going to marry, but she died, but it looks like she's back. But what really caught my eye, Rami Malek, who was in the Queen movie, he played Freddie Mercury. His stock has really gone up because he looks like he is the Bond baddie in this film. We've had a lot of great actors play. There's RSquared with his martini emoji, working the emojis in Skype. Rami Malek is the baddie. I can't wait to see his turn in this. Everybody tells me I've got to check out that Mr. Roboto, whatever it is that he's in on USA. I've never seen it.
Mr. Robot.
Is it any good? I've never seen it.
It's really good. I like it. It's a slow burn though. You got to wait like 5 or 6 episodes before it gets really cooking. So,
well, the other thing that caught my attention in this, and I'm a big Bond fan, the original Aston Martin is back. Not a new Aston Martin. This is the original Aston Martin from I believe it was Thunderball that we first saw this car in. I was very excited to see that Aston Martin come back. You guys, real quick on the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, I really think they're going back old school, which I'm glad to see, and a lot more of the snappy dialogue that I like. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a really good movie.
Well, I really like Daniel Craig as James Bond. A lot of people didn't like him in the beginning. Actually, Hollywood didn't even want him, but the Ian Fleming family really pushed for him.
Yeah,
for this role.
because if you read the books, which are totally different than the movies from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Physically, he's not similar to him, but his demeanor is very similar to Bond, the original Bond. He's not this charming guy. He's a killer in the books.
Yeah.
Very close to the books, which I found very fascinating.
Well, for me, Daniel Craig is my number 2 Bond below Sean Connery. He jumped over Roger Moore, who was my 3rd. So, RSquared, your anything on this?
I'm always excited when a new Bond movie comes out. I just love them, and some of them have not been great, but I'm always going to go see it. I have liked the Daniel Craig Bond movies. They're certainly better than some of the other ones that they'd made a few years ago. So I'm excited by it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
This book, though.
Yeah, and you know what? The scenes, again, the stunts just look crazy. One thing you know when you're going to see a Bond movie, you're seeing stunts that push the limit. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe someone did die during the filming of this. I believe a stuntman either got injured or may have passed away during the filming of this movie. And they've lost a lot of stuntmen over the time. So Time to Die, the trailer's out there. Give it a look. Real quick, TrendingNet writer Joe Bowen asked the question, what if the A's served putting fries instead of popcorn? Just want to have a little fun with this real quick. Hey, I'd be team fries all the way. # team fries for me. Some ketchup, some salt, some pepper, maybe some ranch dressing to dip mines in. But you just got to find a way to keep them warm during the 2-hour film fest. RSquared, team fries or team popcorn?
No, I would have to do popcorn. I'll tell you why. It just lasts longer, first of all. Your fries, you want to be hot. And if you're going to get your food and sit down and, kind of enjoy.
To that fries belong in a movie theater and the people that are wrong. I mean, people that are right. I'm sorry. Fries belong with hamburgers at Five Guys with the chocolate chip.
Oh,
as God intended. Popcorn with the soda, maybe one of those Slurpees or those ices. I'm getting a little more mellow in my old age. I say no, but I'm being more mellow. Stay in your lane, people.
We got a ton of people.
That's exactly. It's the same people who have those goddamn awful nachos at movie theaters. No. You want nachos? Go to a Mexican restaurant.
Well, that's fake cheese anyway. That's like that.
Exactly. That's my
fake
point.
Processed cheese. So good stuff. If you guys, I see a lot of guys in the chat. Johnny Dolan's in the chat. If you can, tell me if you're team fries or # team popcorn. Moving on, we're going to get right into our legal booth. One of them's a breaking news stories. Zimmerman, the guy George Zimmerman, who you guys remember from the Trayvon Martin case, who actually was making money off of doing paintings of Trayvon Martin, and they actually ended up going to court. They shut him down, and he couldn't make money off of that. He's actually filing a lawsuit, which I thought was a fake story but I guess this is true. Zimmerman is suing Trayvon Martin's family for I'll let Ken get into this one. Falsifying.
Very simply, it's under the legal standard. It's libel and slander. They are claiming that they have made false statements that have greatly affected his ability to earn a living. The problem is because this case got such natural publicity, he is not a private citizen. He's a public figure. And the standard for libel and slander and defamation of character to a public figure, and RSquared will back me up on this, is very high. The standard is not only do you have the statement have to prove to be false, but you have to intend to prove that you did it with a malicious intent. And they're not going to be able to prove any of that.
Anything to add to that, RSquared? You think this
just
is
real
dead
quick,
in the water?
No, yeah, I think the lawsuit is dead in the water. I think it's a desperate attempt, and just for a couple of reasons. I mean, Ken's analysis is spot on as usual. I don't even know if George Zimmerman would be considered a celebrity, but either way, he's going to lose the lawsuit because he can't pass either standard. And the guy has had problems. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have money. This is a desperate attempt to do something, and he's obviously being influenced by legal counsel that, in my opinion, has another motivation here. But the fact is, George Zimmerman, for people who don't follow Florida stuff, since the Trayvon Martin case, he didn't learn his lesson. George Zimmerman has been in trouble since then a couple of times. So This is just not a wholesome individual. He's got other So it's not just the Trayvon Martin case. He's had other legal issues, not quite as serious, but he's had some other legal issues where he's been involved with the authorities. So he's got a lot of problems is all I'm going to say about that. It's not my place to pass judgment, but he's got a lot of problems, and this isn't going to solve them for him.
You would think that this would be some nationwide news for us, but we haven't heard
Well, it just broke. NBC posted something on it. I mean, it's just breaking now. So he's not a household name, and no one really is going to care about this because it has nothing to do with the death of Trayvon Martin. So it doesn't really have any viewership appeal, in my opinion. It's just a silly story for people who remember his name or that remember him as a pathetic individual. So we'll see.
And before we send Ken into the stratosphere, we'll full diesel with our next legal booth question. Ken, I just want you to mention the attorney who's representing Zimmerman because
certainly
you're familiar with him.
I don't know the man personally. Let's be perfectly honest with you. I am familiar with him. He is one of the founders of Judicial Watch. For those of you who don't know who Judicial Watch are, they are a right-wing organization that targets judges they happen to disagree with as being liberal and out of touch and try to get them off the bench, harassment, and other things. They've been notoriously for filing frivolous lawsuits in virtually every state, and ironically in Virginia, they were enjoined for a while from filing any more lawsuits because the judge ruled that they were a nuisance on the court and that they were consistently filing suits without any merit. That decision was eventually overturned by the Virginia Supreme Court, which says you cannot block an organization from filing suits in general. You can fine them for any suits that they do that you find frivolous, but you can't act as an absolute bar. And he's one of those clowns.
That's just it. They should be fining them, and there should be bar action taken against them, disciplinary action.
Yes.
As appropriate. As would be appropriate.
As RSquared said, the guy, he's listening to counsel. They're doing it for wholly different reasons. This is a PR ploy to be, let me just say, polite.
All right. Well, while Ken remains calm, we're about to send him into the stratosphere. We had a guy on our page just prior to the show. We usually list our topics of the show, and this topic coming up, we had a guy, Mike DeVersa, who was in the chat. He's going back and forth, and I said, hey, come on the show, come in the chat. We've got an immigration attorney who's going to break it all down for you. He had some things to say about immigration attorneys that was kind of a shot across the bow. Ken, I don't see Mike DeVersa in here, but I'm about to unleash Ken. So here's the story in the legal booth. ICE, the government task force, they're hired to take care of these things with. It's not a term that we're really supposed to be using as illegal aliens, but ICE arrested more than 90 students at a fake university in Michigan. Here's the problem. The problem is that ICE, under whoever gave them these instructions or oversaw this task force or whatever they were doing here, ICE created the university online, took these kids' money who applied and took the classes, and when it was all said and done, they arrested them. Now, I felt when I read this story right off the bat, I'm like, wow, these are people here who are trying to get their life straight. They're trying to do the right thing in this country. Yet here they are. Here we go. You guys are the lawyers. You guys have the tutelage and to tell me when I'm wrong. And both of you are saying it's not entrapment. RSquared, I believe you said, but the act is very disgusting. And Ken, as an immigration attorney, I'm going to let you go first. And I apologize for what he's about to say if he goes full diesel.
First of all, don't apologize, because listen up, sit down, and shut up. Because Kendi is about to educate your sorry fat ass, and I'm not spelling that with a PH. Okay? Listen. First of all, there is no such thing as an illegal alien. Okay? You moron. An alien is simply someone who has come into this country, who is not a U.S. or lawful permanent resident. That presupposes that they have gone through an inspection process, through a port of entry. Okay? If you come here into the United States without going through a port of entry and without going through immigration and customs, you are someone who are referred to as an EWI, entered without inspection, EWI. There is nothing illegal about you. Why? Because a person can't be illegal. All right? Only an action can be illegal. Are we clear?
Mm-hmm.
Do we understand? Okay. Let's try this again. Now, I'm going to throw this out to the audience. And RSquared can't answer this question.
Uh-oh.
Okay? It's a trick question. I'm giving you ahead of time.
It's pretty biased.
Okay. If you commit an illegal act, which is a criminal offense, and you are not a U.S. citizen, do you have to be brought in front of what is called an Article III court? Yes or no?
I'm going to guess. I don't know. I'm going to say no.
Absolutely wrong. Anyone, regardless of whether they've been inspected, an overstay, or violated terms of admission, if you committed a criminal offense, you must be brought in front of an Article III court. The reason most people who have violated the terms of their immigration or entered without inspection do not go to Article III courts is because they are deemed to be a civil matter, non-criminal. It's an administrative panel. That's why they can do it. By its very nature, unless someone is brought in front of an Article III court and indicted federally, they have not committed a crime. Okay? They have committed an administrative violation. This is no different than a parking ticket. Okay? Because like parking tickets, if you got a parking ticket, you don't go to an Article III court. If you appeal it, you go in front of an administrative tribunal. If you, for example, let's just do one. Let's use your profession. You have certain regulations that you have to follow with regard to your buses, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And if you violate them, you get written up, right?
Written up or fired.
Right. But the company may be brought in front of OSHA or EPA or DP or one of the other administrative agencies to answer for that, correct?
Correct.
No one is coming in and slap you guys in cuffs and throwing you in jail. Why? Because you violated an administrative regulation, not a criminal offense. Now, as for ICE and their phony university, well, I agree with RSquared. It is not entrapment, because entrapment needs to show that you did not intend to commit the offense you were entrapped into. Now, you already did that, so that doesn't count. But it stinks! Because here's the reason. All academic institutions that accept non-U.S. citizen and non-LPR have to sign up with CVIS. Okay, which is a government agency. So they violated U.S. law by setting up the fake university because they weren't affiliated with CVIS. Number two, all students who come here are not LPRs or are not U.S. citizens and don't have another visa have to come here on an F1 visa or student visa. And that's got to be processed by the school. Okay, so let's recap, boys and girls, shall we? ICE has committed 2 felonies. 1, they're not registered as CVIS, and number 2, they were accepting students without F1 visas. So how the heck, and all that is holy, would you please explain to me how we are saying it is improper for someone here who's trying to get an education, trying to better themselves, is wrong, but a government agency with 10,000 lawyers breaks the law is right. Okay? Please explain it to me, because I have no idea.
So it's not even entrapment. They actually broke the law.
You broke the law.
Mm.
The person who set up that university and anyone working there who knew about that can be criminally prosecuted.
I believe it was an online university, so I mean, obviously they had professors, online people posing as professors in these classes. I mean, these kids thought, and what happens to these kids who put their time in, and now they've lost all this time with a fake school? How do they recoup that back?
They don't.
Did they ever even start, though?
Yes,
I believe they did, yes.
They were teaching classes, and they had a physical location.
Wow.
They had a lab. That's my point. My point is the people who ran that school should be prosecuted for fraud.
Who did this come from? Who do you guys think this order came from? You just don't come up with this. I can't see Trump ordering something like this, but would he have signed off on it, or?
No, he signed off on it. Stephen Miller, his immigration.
Stephen Miller. Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. Stephen Miller.
Who, as much as I hate to admit this, and who is a stain on both RSquared's and I's ethnic and religious history, is a Jew. If you can believe that.
Well, can you guys explain who he is? Because
he was born when his family has disowned him. So,
can you guys explain who he is for those who are listening?
The special assistant to the president for immigration. Gotcha. He is the guy in charge of the family separation programs, of the zero tolerance, of changing all the immigration rules.
Mm. Yeah, it was a crazy story. I actually got to thank my son.
Needs to be taken out and beaten severely with a piece of heavy money equivalent or Title 8 of the U.S. Code, which is where all the Immigration and Nationality Act is stored.
I got to thank my son, because my son Terrell actually shared that story to me and said, "Hey, Dad, what do you think about this story?" And I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." I said, "Oh, we're definitely talking about this one on Tuesday." Well, and that's what I shared it in our chat. It was a great story. Yeah, great story. All right, let's move on. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just real quick, because I don't disagree with Ken's legal analysis, but, as someone who actually believes we need to be enforcing immigration rules and with some exceptions, if you come in violation of our nation's laws, then you should be deported, but after proper due process. But the problem is this. I find tactics like this reprehensible, and I think tactics like this set back any legitimate effort that there is in enforcing immigration laws, because this to me shows evil intent. It shows improper motivation, because if you're going to if you're going to enforce immigration laws, which again, if they're on the books, I think we should enforce them or we should change them more. But Ken knows what I think about this. We're decades past the shelf life of the immigration rules and procedures we have, and I blame multiple iterations of Congress and whatever for not fixing it. But the problem is we have what we have, and they're a mess, and so they can be difficult to enforce. President Obama signed the DACA order, which was an executive order. And the reason I bring that up is because it's an example of something. When an administration comes to power, this is why elections have consequences. When an administration comes to power, the president, in his role, or her role soon to be, at some point, has the ability to set enforcement priorities for the federal agencies. So they cannot change or create law, but substantively, but they can certainly change priorities. And so DACA was an attempt by the Obama administration to say, you know what, we have people who technically are in violation of U.S. immigration law, but they were brought here as children by their parents. They've done nothing wrong. They've lived incredibly productive lives as citizens. Well, not citizens, but among citizens. And so we're not going to make them a priority. We're not going to we're not going to find whatever. They're going to get special treatment, and they're allowed to do that. They're not changing the law because Congress has to do that, and they're long overdue in doing it. But they're allowed to change the enforcement priority to say we're not going to go after those people. So I apologize. It was my long-winded way of saying that this administration came in and has said we are going to target these people, and we are going to find a way, ways to throw them out of the country. And this is what I found despicable. What I said to you guys in the chat when it came up is these are not the people that any administration ought to be targeting. If you're going to target individuals, then there are certainly categories of people who are, that are far more deserving of immigration enforcement than people who are simply trying to get an education. I don't know if these are all DACA individuals. That may not be, but my guess is that you've got a similar category of people, most of which the American public would not support targeting efforts against. And to use a tactic like this, to me, sets back all of the decent, hardworking individuals who are just trying to do the right thing in immigration enforcement, and it makes everybody look like a bunch of thugs. And so, shame on you, Stephen Miller. Shame on you, Trump administration. Shame on you, Director of ICE, who is supporting this. Because this is exactly what we're not supposed to do as the United States. We absolutely should be enforcing our immigration laws, and there are a lot of ways we can be doing that. And there are, a tremendous number of people who have been deported under multiple administrations because of it. Tactics like this, that is not who we are as a nation.
Wow, I got full diesel and I got RSquared going full diesel. So RSquared's a politer full diesel than Ken. So we're going to move along.
RSquared is the adult I want to be when I finally grow up.
Oh, man. So we're going to roll into the sports booth real quick. We got a lot of sports news, actually. The Patriots fell to the Texans 28-22. They're 10-2. But, hey, New England sports fans, hey, stop being so effing spoiled. We're 10-2. It's a tough loss. Look, we lost to Baltimore, and Baltimore's been running the table. It's a good team. We're not a crappy team. When you lose to a team that's still running the table, they took down San Fran. We've now lost to the Texans, who is a pretty good team. And to be honest, Patriots lost by 6 points, and the 6 points they lost by is that one hell of a trick play that they pulled with the double handoff to score the touchdown. I thought that was a great play. That's the type of plays you need to pull out your butts to beat a Super Bowl champion. I totally agree with that play. I think they deserve to win. All this talk about bringing AB back, don't bring AB back. I know he was trolling the team. Look, you've got Isaiah Wynn back. You've got a kid, N'Keal Harry. He's our first-round draft pick. He's only been back for 3 games, people. Let the kid mature. Let the kid build his time up. Jacoby Myers is making some catches on the field. He's run some round routes, but guess what? He was undrafted. He was a walk-on. Let these guys build. Stop being so friggin' spoiled. I'd rather see a 10-2 team fight their butts off than having – we've got the Washington Redskins who are still in playoff contention at 3-9. Can you believe that? 3-9 and they're still in playoff contention because that division is absolutely horrible. Horrible.
Both Houston and Baltimore played one hell of a games. It was, they deserved to win. It wasn't a blowout. We're still 10-2. Sit down. Shut the bleep up.
Yeah. RSquared, your thoughts? Because your team is in that division that we were just talking about, where it's just that division is a mess this year. There's nothing else to be said about it. I agree with what you guys are saying. Patriots fans need to just grow up and get a sense of reality. They've been spoiled because the team management has done a pretty good job of rotating players every year and keeping the team competitive. Not to mention the easy division they have to win. So. They've had an amazing run, and I don't know that we'll ever see that repeated again. I just think, so many things have to line up right for that to happen. So credit to the organization for doing it. But you know what? They're going to lose a few games along the way, and it doesn't mean anything. Losing to Baltimore, that's a great team. They may be the Super Bowl winner this year. I hope not. I hope not. I don't like them, but they very well may be. And losing to Houston doesn't stink, and they were down at home. So, that's not a terrible loss. In fact, maybe it's a good time for one, then they can make a run going into the playoffs. But, it's going to happen. Teams are going to, have some setbacks. They're going to have some bad outings. Get it out of the system now. I just don't understand why people are, I don't mean you guys, but, some of the Boston media, sports media, it's just ridiculous. You know what? Be thankful. 10-2 is amazing. Yeah, it's horrible up here, and I'm just embarrassed because, like we said on this show a few weeks ago, I was a fan when I couldn't even give tickets away. Now everybody's a freaking New England fan around here. Everybody's wearing Patriots stuff. I used to get laughed at.
Yeah, RSquared and I were in law school between 88 and 92 because RSquared was a year ahead of me. We were poor law students that we could afford to go to the games. You go down there, you buy the cheap tickets, and then at halftime you move down to like the 50-yard line. Because everyone had left by halftime in Gillette Stadium. Not Gillette Stadium, excuse me, in Schaefer Stadium.
Schaefer, yep. At that time, it was Schaefer, yep.
And remember, you had to bring a hard hat with you because you were worried about cement falling on your head and cracking your skull.
Or getting electrocuted because they had metal seats.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So, I mean...
And the less they said about the bathroom is better,
Oh, my God. Don't even remind me of the big, giant bathtubs that you urinated in.
Yeah,
and again, we talked about this AFC East division too. The Bills are actually nipping at the heels of the Pats because they beat Dallas on Thanksgiving. And the Chargers in the AFC, they actually just gave the game away to Rivera, was fired from the Carolina Panthers. You know what? When coaches get fired, sometimes I'll agree with it. I do not agree with this one at all. Cam Newton was injured early on this year. Christian McCaffrey was the guy they had running the ball, but you can't keep running Christian McCaffrey all season when your star quarterback goes down. And it doesn't look good for Cam Newton, too, because they're talking about maybe offering up for trade bait. I would say right now that sounds like damaged goods to me. I don't think Ron Rivera deserved to be fired. Guys, I'm going to go around the horn. RSquared, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that he deserved to be fired. I think he's a decent coach. He's had some good success with that team. I did see what the owner had to say, and he said, listen, he didn't want to start interviewing for a head coach without telling Ron Rivera to his face that he was going to be terminated. So he wants to start interviewing now, since in his mind it's a done deal to replace Rivera. So he went and did it now as opposed to waiting till the end of the year so they can start interviewing potential replacements. I suppose that could be true, but the question is, why was it so important to fire him in the first place? And that's where I share your skepticism. I'm not so sure that this is all on him. Now, the backup quarterback is not doing such a bad job. That's why they're saying they may keep him and trade up Newton. So if that's the case, then this is not about Cam Newton going out. There's another problem on that team, but I'm not sure it's all Ron Rivera.
RSquared? Ken?
Look, to quote the late, great Bum Phillips, the great head coach for the Houston Oilers for many years, there are two types of NFL coaches out there. Ones that have been ones that have just been fired, and ones that are about to be.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this is the way they do it in the NFL. This is their, idea of changing clothes or whatever.
They blame coaches.
He took the hit for a lot of problems, some which he caused, some which were out of his control. And frankly, I'm sorry, Carolina doesn't need a new coaching staff; they need new ownership.
And they're 5-7 too. They really weren't that bad. They were at 5-7. Right. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with Cam Newton being out. Our last topic in the sports booth, a couple of things. Real entertaining dance this weekend. They did New Edition out there for their dance when they scored a touchdown on the Seattle Seahawks, who also took home the best celebration award last year, so it looks like they may get it this year. Also, the NFL suspended Josh Shaw for the rest of the 2020 season. He was on IR, but he was caught betting on NFL games. I feel, keep your eye on this story, people. We've already had NBA referees come out and talk about how they were betting on games and they were calling, fouls and things on players in games that wouldn't bring, attention to it. Like they would call fouls or something on like a Brian Scalabrine that wouldn't raise eyebrows, but it was helping them win money on the outside because they were betting on the games. I feel this is a big problem. I think we need to keep our eyes on this, and it's pretty scary, considering the NFL rule states that NFL players and their employees are not supposed to be betting on games or any type of fantasy football. Yet, CBS Sports NFL and everybody runs their own fantasy leagues. They're promoting spreads, which is kind of hypocritical. Your thoughts real quick on this, guys. I'm going to go with RSquared first.
Yeah, I just had one thought on the matter. The rules very, very plainly say you may not bet on.
Right, Carolina going into Atlanta. With this news with Ron Rivera coming down, usually teams like to bounce back to send a message. I think Carolina can go into Atlanta and win this game to send a message to those who let Rivera go. Ken?
Yeah, Carolina is on a tear. Atlanta is, God knows what they're doing. Maybe they're tanking on purpose for a high draft pick, but yeah, Carolina.
RSquared?
Yeah, I think Carolina is going to win this game. I originally was going to go with Atlanta, but I just don't see the consistency there, and I think Carolina has a lot to prove this week.
All right, we got Baltimore going into Buffalo. Buffalo's at 9-3, nipping at the heels of the Patriots, but Baltimore 10-2. Both of these teams know this is a must-win game for both teams. Again, it's a 1:00 game. I'm surprised they're not flexing this game to a primetime game. I'm going to go with Baltimore because until I can see somebody contain Lamar Jackson, I haven't seen it. They did a good job this weekend, but Baltimore still gets the win. I'm going with Baltimore. RSquared?
Yeah, Buffalo is going to be one of the better defenses Lamar Jackson and Baltimore plays this year, but they just don't have the offense to compete, so Baltimore.
Ken?
Yeah, I really wanted to go with Buffalo on this one. My heart was Buffalo, but I'm sorry. This is going to be a game of offensive attrition, and Buffalo's got the horses for this. I'm sorry, Baltimore's got the horses for this race. Buffalo doesn't. It's going to be a squeaker, but yeah, Baltimore's going to walk away with the win.
Cincinnati, who got their first win because Andy Dalton is back at the helm, they took home their first win, but they're going into Cleveland, who just lost the rubber match game against Pittsburgh. Can Cleveland, Baker Mayfield, can these guys knock Cincinnati? I think Cincinnati is on a little bit of a roll. I think they'll take home their second win. I'm going with Cincinnati. Ken?
No way in hell. I'm sorry. They got one victory because they stole it away. Cleveland's actually can play football on alternate Tuesdays, and this is one of the alternate Tuesdays, yeah. And they're playing at home.
RSquared?
I got to go Cleveland in this. However, I saw that there's some uncertainty about whether Baker Mayfield's going to play, and I'm not sure about Cleveland's backup, but Cincinnati is still a dumpster fire, so I got to go Cleveland.
That's right. Baker Mayfield did hit his hand on the helmet of another player in the fourth quarter, so I haven't heard the word yet either what's going on with Baker Mayfield's hand, so we'll have to see about that. Well, that's Washington, who has to win out to make the playoffs. I don't see it happening. Why? Because they got to go to Green Bay this weekend, and I don't see them winning in Green Bay. I'm going with Green Bay. RSquared?
Yeah, Green Bay.
Ken?
Look, nobody is coming into Lambeau Field in the beginning of December with a red-hot Green Bay team winning anything, especially the Washington Redskins, who right now could knock off a Wisconsin Pop Warner team. Yeah, Green Bay.
All right, we got Denver heading into Houston. Houston's coming off of beating the Pats. Denver pulling off that win over the San Diego Chargers. Houston's at home. I'm taking Houston because they're the home team. Ken?
Yeah, Houston all the way.
RSquared?
Yeah, definitely Houston.
All right, we got Detroit, who's they just can't seem to get it done. They're heading into Minnesota. After watching Minnesota tear apart those Seahawks, I'm going with Minnesota at home over Detroit. RSquared?
Yeah, Minnesota.
No Ken?
Rape, pillage, burn, destroy. Go Vikings.
All right. San Fran going into New Orleans. New Orleans has got Drew Brees back. Both these teams at 10-2. Quietly, New Orleans quiet 10-2. They're playing good ball. This game is in New Orleans. As much as I like San Fran and Garoppolo, I don't know. I think Drew Brees at home, I'm going to have to go with Drew Brees. I got a field goal on this one. Ken Diesel?
I went back and forth on this one a lot, and I basically flipped a coin in my head and came down with San Francisco and Jimmy G. I think they are just on fire. I think they came in the Rodney Dangerfield of the NFL. No one was giving them any respect, and they've been eating everybody else's lunch. So, all due respect to New Orleans, it can be a great game, but I'm going with San Fran.
Yeah, it is a tough one. RSquared? Was it tough for you?
If they played 10 times, the series would probably be split. They're both really good teams. You just have to go with the home team in a situation like this, especially the Saints, where they really do have a home field advantage. I also think their team is a little bit deeper than the Niners, so I'm going to go New Orleans.
All right, we got Miami heading into New York. Miami's running back, Kenyon Ballage is actually hurt. I haven't heard that the report isn't out until Thursday, the injury report. So I'm just going to take the Jets at home, and we'll go from there. RSquared?
Yeah, it's a division game. I got to go with the home team, Jets.
Ken?
Look, the Jets are a walking excuse for birth control, the butt fumble, yet they're playing the only team in the NFL who they're better than, and that's Miami. Yeah, go with the Jets.
All right, Indianapolis, quiet 6-6 going into Tampa Bay, who, again, they are just non-consistent. You never know which Tampa Bay is going to show up. I like Jacoby Brissett. They played good ball. I'm going with these guys over Tampa Bay. Ken?
Yeah, I made fun of the Glue Factory every day this season, and every time I pick them, they lose. Every time I don't pick them, they win. I'm hoping to break my streak, so I'm going with Indianapolis.
Squid?
Yeah, I've got to pick Indianapolis. I think this is going to be a very tough road game for them. Tampa Bay is good. I don't know what they're fighting for, but they're not going to give it up, and the Colts are just hot and cold, but I'm just going to put my faith in the Colts this week.
We got a 4-8 matchup coming up here at 4 o'clock. This is the game that I would not be surprised gets flexed out. The Chargers heading into Jacksonville. It's a tough one. Chargers are coming off that game where they just pretty much gave it away. I've got to take Jacksonville at home. RSquared?
Yeah, I'm just going with the home team. I don't know what's going on with the Chargers, so I'm taking Jacksonville at home.
Ken?
The only thing good about Jacksonville is their rep as Saxonville. I'm going with the Chargers. Diamond Dogs pull out games like this all the time when they shouldn't, and they're going to do it again.
All right, we got Pittsburgh heading into Arizona, who's just another team, inconsistent ball. I'm taking Pittsburgh over Arizona. Ken?
Yeah, Pittsburgh all the way.
RSquared?
Yeah, I'm going Pittsburgh.
All right, Kansas City coming into New England. New England is pretty much unbeatable at home. Their miserable time has been on the road. Can New England bounce back after that loss in Houston? Man, as much as I want to say New England is going to win this game, I think Kansas City is the healthier team right now. And I think there's way too many options on defense for Kansas City. I'm taking Kansas City this weekend, and I think Patriots Nation's heads are going to explode because they'll be 10-3. Ken?
Traitor! No, if this game were being played in Kansas City, I would have taken the Chiefs. But no one comes into Foxborough in December after the Patriots lose a game and wins, especially not Kansas City. I would not want to be in the Patriots locker room right now for all the tea in China between Bill Belichick losing his stuffing and Tom Brady losing his stuffing and Julian Edelman, taking out anybody who isn't behind 4 inches of bullet-resistant glass. Yeah, I mean, we're going to be sacrificing virgins while burning down the house, but New England will take this game.
All right. RSquared?
Yeah, hang on. My thing just crashed on me here, but yeah, I'm going Patriots just because of the home team, and I don't know what's going to happen. I think this is the most likely game they could lose at home, and it wouldn't surprise me, but I just got to pick the home team.
All right, we got Tennessee heading into Oakland. Again, both these teams they've got no consistency. I'm taking Oakland at home. I'm hoping to see if they can pull this one out. RSquared?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I think I got to go Tennessee on this one.
All right. Ken?
Yeah, I'm going with Tennessee only because Oakland's been so, inconsistent.
All right. We got Seattle, who's been playing some good ball. Russell Wilson, very impressive as he is year after year. They're going down to take on the Rams at home. As much as I want to take the Rams at home, I'm sorry, I'm taking Seattle. That offense and that defense is playing good ball. Ken?
Yeah, the greatest show on turf is long since he passed its sell-by date. Go with Seattle.
RSquared?
Yeah, Seattle in this one. It may be a closer game than people think, but the Rams are having too many problems.
All right. Last game to pick, and we let RSquared pick this one first because it's his team. We've got the Giants heading into Philadelphia. Philadelphia is trying to keep their hopes alive for a playoff spot at 5-6. Can the Giants go into Philly, man? What do you think?
I think that the Giants... it's a big rivalry game, but Philadelphia seems to have their number in recent years, and they're still fighting for something. And so I've got to pick Philly at home.
Ooh, okay. Ken?
Yeah, for what RSquared said, and the fact that, I love RSquared to death. He's the brother I never had that I always wanted, but his Giants are a freaking trash dumpster fire in blue. Yeah, Philly at home.
Yeah, I'm taking Philly at home. They know that they need to get this done, so I'm going to say Philly, and then that's our picks for the week. All right, let's move on to Trump troubles real quick. We've got a few things to talk about in here. Let's see. Just days after the impeachment inquiries were finished, we've got some new transcripts of witness testimony showing in vivid detail how President Trump maneuvered behind the scenes to block aid to the Ukraine. But then today, we went into this questioning of 4 professors, law professors, 3 of them who say that Trump did do things that should be impeachment. And we have one that says, he feels it's not, but he does feel that something should be, that he called it a misdemeanor, something he called it. So let's just get into that topic. I'm going to go to RSquared first because he was actually able to watch this stuff today.
Yeah, I watched most of it. I thought it was interesting. You know, it's funny. Just as with the Intelligence Committee hearings the last couple of weeks and these hearings today, it's a shame that these members of Congress are so freaking arrogant that they demand their 5 minutes to embarrass themselves on national television. All of the production comes from the dedicated time that the counsel for each side get to ask questions, which is about 45 minutes on each side. If they would just double that to an hour and a half each and call it a day, these hearings would be incredibly productive and meaningful. Instead, you've got. It's just ridiculous. First of all, the 5 minutes of questioning expires before you can get anything done. So my overall assessment of this of today was it was a complete waste of time and it was a joke. However, I do think it was interesting. All four of these professors are very widely respected, incredible individuals. That's why they were invited there. I found them very interesting to listen to. I didn't agree with everything that all of them said, but I found that they were very interesting in their certainly knowledge of the Constitution, knowledge of the framers' intent, which is something that gives law students and historical scholars headaches when you try to read all that and figure it out. They were truly masters of their craft, and I think did a very respectable job no matter who was asking them questions. Again, you could see the questions coming from each side of the aisle without even looking at the name. You could just tell who was taking this seriously and who was, and that's really just unfortunate that there's so much at stake here. And it seems to me that when you, like, for example, you consider Professor Turley, who does not support Trump. He doesn't think that the case has been made for impeachment. He's been very critical of Trump and his other ethical digressions and everything. And so, of course, the Republicans were focused on him most of the day, eliciting testimony from him about why he didn't think so. I didn't agree with a lot of what he said, but I respected it, and some of the things I did agree with. And I think there's a strong case to be made about some of the things that are lacking and some of the consequences. And I think there are more political questions than legal questions that are still open, but I found that somewhat interesting. And I enjoyed the other professors. I didn't know them as well. I've seen Turley a lot on television, and one of the problems with him is he's been so prevalent on television for the last several years that, as they say in the South, he's starting to get too big for his britches. And he sat there with a very smug look on his face, and I think he was I think he was a little carried away with himself, quite frankly. And I think, to me, that detracted from some of his message, although, again, I thought he had at least credible opinions to share. Professor Harlan from Stanford seemed to be on the hot seat most of the day. She started off incredibly well. She gave it back to Representative Collins, who was way out of line and attacking her integrity for no reason. The problem is she got heated during the day and she lost some of her credibility. She even apologized at the end of the day for something she had said. And I think she didn't come across as scholarly. She came across as more partisan, unfortunately, because of some of that. She just was a little bit too intense. But her knowledge was incredible. And then you had the professors from Feldman from Harvard and Gephardt from University of North Carolina, who I thought were probably some of the most credible of the day. They just had some really in-depth knowledge and assessment of things. At the end of the day, though, what really comes of this? Very little, because this isn't really a legal question. This is really a political question. If Trump's actions are clearly on record. There's no real dispute about that, whether the Republicans want to admit it or not. So it seems to me that I'm not sure what this accomplished, quite frankly. And if this is the way that the Judiciary Committee sessions are going to go, and I understand that some of it is the gamesmanship of the Republican side, this is really going to be a disaster, and the American people are not going to respond positively to it.
Anything you want to add to that, Ken?
No. Rob, as usual, summed it up much more efficiently, eloquently than I ever could.
Yeah, like I said, one of the things, like I said, is, I still feel that we're not going to know anything because they want to protect democracy. Real quick, again, the booth nails Trump again. We talked about his health last week and why he visited the hospital unscheduled. There's a reason why, and I'm going to get into it right after this. But the funny thing was to show that he was a clean bill of health. President Trump, in an awkward manner, he tweeted a photo of himself why his health checkup was at the hospital was scheduled, because President Trump went over to Afghanistan to have Thanksgiving dinner with the troops. It really bothered me that there were so many people on Facebook and social media. They were praising Donald Trump for going over and doing something that almost every president has done. He's not the first to go over and eat with the troops on Thanksgiving, number one. Number two, if you all remember correctly, President Trump has not gone over to eat with the troops for the last 2 years he was in office. This was his first time actually going over. So for me, I felt like, okay, the heat is on. Again, this is like him going down to the Alabama game after being booed everywhere else. He went down to his people and got the cheers he wanted. Now, because the heat's on him, he goes over and he eats with the troops. But not only did he eat with the troops, he also did some political maneuvering over there to try to get that political sway back into his spot. RSquared, you actually wasn't really happy about this. You felt he was using this again as a political strategic move by going over there and eating with the troops, correct?
Yeah, it's a couple things. First of all, you're absolutely right. Every president has gone to visit the troops on holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas and other major occasions. It's just part of the things you do. It's one of the sacrifices you make to show leadership. You leave your family and you go to those who are deployed away from their own for a quick visit, for in and out, whatever. Most of the time they do it off camera. They have they actually sit with the, with the service members in the dining facility, and they're obviously carefully selected who gets to sit with the president. But it's a reward for soldiers who deserve it. Military members, all services who deserve it. And in theory, it should be a reward for any president who gets the privilege of doing something like that, because they should come away with incredible meaning. The problem is President Trump has chosen not to do that at all for his first few years. He did it this year out of desperation. He is so desperate to, number one, try to re-solidify his support within the military or any support he gets that he has to do this for political reasons, not because he believed in it. It's interesting because, there's been a lot of controversy over the pardons, which we talked about for the war criminals, how reprehensible that was. And there's been some interesting stuff that I saw on Facebook from some other current and former military members that I served with that are posting pieces or sharing pieces, reposting pieces that have been written just about how just bad he is as a commander-in-chief, how bad he is for military members, and for the most part, Trump doesn't even know it. He actually thinks he's doing right by the military when, these people are accounting, much as I have done on the show and in my own written pieces, not as eloquently as some of these professional journalists, but the same points, which is just how bad he is as a commander-in-chief for all of the wrong reasons. So this was a desperate attempt to salvage some kind of political face for him, not because he cares one iota about military members, and I'm sure it was an incredible sacrifice. Plus, when presidents do that, anybody, and members of Congress too for that matter, anybody who goes and visits the troops, it is a non-political event. You do not engage in politics or partisanship or anything. You just go and talk to the soldiers, you ask them how they're doing and that type of thing. You don't do politics. And Trump can't help himself. He has to badmouth the Democrats. He made some kind of speech about Nancy Pelosi. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him on what he was saying, you don't do that when you go to visit the deployed troops. You just don't. And so it's just a shame that he can't get these things that should be so simple right. And it's because he lacks the character to do it, I'm sorry to say.
And before I let Ken chime in on this, and I got to say this because when Trump got in, and RSquared has been on this show with us, RSquared was a little bit more reserved. And I'm not going to say this, that first year of Trump being in office, there were some things that went on with the military, and you were torn. You wanted to stay respectful of your commander-in-chief, and as time has gone on, and you've been writing your pieces, you've got a new piece up right now, Blogging with RSquared, a brand new piece up. Everybody's got to check it out. But you yourself, how much has, we know you, but how much has this torn you to say the things that you want to say? Because right now you're more comfortable with speaking out. When we first got into office, I remember you were a little bit more reserved. Has it been an internal thing for you?
It's been very much an internal struggle for me at first because I still sometimes question about how far is it appropriate to go, even though I'm no longer on active duty. And what I say to myself, and what I've said about why I've spoken out a lot more recently than I have, is because I think we're in a national crisis. And that's why I think that other military leaders have had to resign, and not just military, civilian leaders of the military as well, have been in a difficult position where they've had to speak truth to power, which is what they're trained to do, especially at the senior levels, where they have to threaten to and actually resign over protest, not just because of a disagreement over something, but because of a fundamental effect on safety and readiness and that type of thing. And so when you see President Trump and his administration abusing military members, that's not something we could just accept as a change in policy. When you see, some of the things that happen in Syria, you can't just say, well, that's just a change in policy. Yes, elections have consequences. Policy is going to change. You're going to have presidents who are better commanders-in-chief than others. But this is all very different, and we know that because everything about this president is different, including his personal conduct and his personal behavior. When President Clinton had an affair with Monica Lewinsky, everybody was saying, well, he can't be president, he can't be the commander-in-chief because adultery is still a crime under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and he had, sex with a subordinate, and, he violated all those, and legally, of course, he's not subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, but he did put himself in a questionable position as commander-in-chief. He certainly did. And people who were being critical of that had every right to be critical of it. Well, you fast forward to President Trump and, his personal conduct and his not just personal conduct, which is reprehensible, but the fact that he regularly acts against our own national security interest is appalling. And those in uniform can only do so much because they shouldn't all just mass quit over it. That wouldn't be the right answer, leave our country defenseless. But leaders have to make a statement. And, and that's going to require people to speak out more so than we normally would. And what I said very carefully on the show last time we talked about this, I think it was last week even, was we absolutely have to make sure we put the genie back in the bottle and we go right back to propriety and decorum and everything else, protocol, whenever it is that this president leaves office. We can't let this be the new norm. But he is such an existential danger to this country right now that we have to speak out. And I have to be one of those people, even if it comes with consequences.
Ooh, damn. Ooh, Ken, anything to add to that? Nope. Just put it out there. Okay. After signing the Hong Kong bills, China accused Trump of sinister intentions. RSquared, you did come in his defense, and you said he was kind of forced to sign that. Real quick on that one?
Yeah, I mean, look how long this thing has been going on, and he didn't want to say a darn thing about it because he's trying to suck up to, Premier Xi, who he has one of his love affairs with. He even lamented the other day, this is true, he lamented the other day that he doesn't know if Premier Xi likes him anymore. So come on now. I mean, he's concerned about whether Putin likes him, whether Xi likes him, whether Kim Jong-un likes him, but he could care less about our NATO allies. I mean, give me a break. But this is what's going on in his mind, and he did not want to say anything about the Hong Kong protesters because he doesn't want to create problems with Xi. He's desperate to do a trade deal, and of course, China has issues with that, and for all kinds of personal and policy reasons, he did not want to speak out. But the Congress, this is one of those rare moments where Congress is willing to push him because it was just so obvious to them that they passed legislation, and he was forced to sign it because just like he was forced to sign the Russia sanctions bill that he was against because there was just no way around it. It had overwhelming support, and he would have been thoroughly embarrassed. So he absolutely had to sign it. He doesn't mean it. When he was asked about it just the other day, he gave very short answers, which is uncharacteristic for him, and doesn't want to talk about it. So it's not genuine.
All right, we have some breaking news, but I got a last topic for Ken. A Manhattan attorney is preparing to indict President Trump for tax fraud. Ken, you've been talking about this. I want you to get into that real quick before we get into our final breaking news.
Very simple. I have been talking about this. I'll make it quick. There are numerous problems with the entire Trump family's inheritance tax issues. Donald Trump has repeatedly lied on his tax returns. That's why I don't think any of us are ever going to see his tax returns. But yeah, about freaking time. That's all I can say. That's a state, not a federal. Very important. The DA
was this the District Attorney Vance, or was this the state of New York? I forgot.
No, this is DA Vance.
Yeah, this is the ongoing Vance thing, right? Because the state Attorney General's got a case on him too. So
yeah. But they're waiting on the DA Vance, so let him that DA handled the first go around.
All right, so we're going to give our breaking news story.
Dark skin color with a dark football with a dark uniform. You could not see that thing. I mean, you literally could not see when he was in and out of the mesh point, and and that's going to mean, and you're a half step slow on it.
Well, tonight a 49ers broadcaster has been suspended for inappropriate comments he made about the Baltimore Ravens quarterback following Sunday's game. The team released this statement saying, "We are disappointed in Tim Ryan's comments earlier this week and have suspended him for the upcoming game. Tim has expressed remorse in a public statement and has also done so with us privately." Now, Ryan released his own statement saying, quote, "I regret my choice of words in trying to describe the conditions of the game. Lamar Jackson is an MVP caliber player and I respect him greatly. I want to sincerely apologize to him."
2019, people. 2019, and we still have. Are we this stupid, people, in this day and age, Ken?
Really? You need to ask that question? Yes.
You're on TV. You're on the radio. I just don't get it. Suspended till further notice for his comments that just. This goes back to Jimmy the Greek. Remember when Jimmy the Greek?
Oh, yeah.
Do we not learn from this?
No, we don't.
Quote
Santiago, those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there's just nothing you could say about this. He had to know better. I don't know what would possess him to say that. If it's on his mind, part of me says at least he was being honest, but I can't believe that this is even on his mind.
He's a young guy.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even about him talking about some kind of, racial code for his athleticism. He actually said color of his skin matches the football. Give me a break. How stupid is that? I mean, you can't even make an argument about that versus athleticism or anything else that people have sometimes gotten in trouble for, where, sometimes that could be foolish and ignorant. This was just outright stupid. I mean, it's nonsensical. And he would say it. It just shows you how perverse his mind was.
Like I said, people, it's 2019, and we still have people out there who think it's just scary, scary stuff. I can't believe it. So, guys, we got to get out of here. Another great show. I apologize for the show in the beginning, but it was a great show. We're going to let these guys go around the horn and say their goodbyes, but I just got to remind people that we go on our holiday break on December 17th with a 2-hour closing out 2019 show, just prior to December 21st, where it's the return of Eddie Murphy. I think we're going to set up a nice little chat. I think I'll be on live. Would you guys be willing to come on live for that episode? And we could just discuss?
At midnight? No, thank you.
No, I think it's 11:30 saying that live on a Saturday.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. So,
I
watch it in the morning.
Me and Ken will probably be out there. Once again, we're also going to remind people that we have a December 11th. There is a holiday event at the Shaw Center where they will be giving out toys and stuff to needy families. We will be at that event on December 11th. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show tonight. Great stuff. RSquared does have a new blog up where we, what's it about again? Your blog that you just put up? This was
on the impeachment piece, although it was really about the Intelligence Committee's piece from the last 2 weeks, not necessarily about the about what started today. That's why it went up. I was trying to get it up before this one started so it wouldn't be confused, so I kind of just missed. But I've got another one coming up about the Democratic primary that I'm going to post over the weekend.
And speaking of Democratic primary, Kamala Harris dropped out. That was today, I believe.
Yeah, I'll address that.
Yeah, she dropped out, so we'll address that. We'll go around the horn and let everybody say their goodbyes now. I'm going to start with RSquared first.
Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Always appreciate it. It's great to be able to speak about these things. And remember, the only weapon we truly have is information and involvement.
Ken Diesel?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone and wish everyone a belated happy Thanksgiving. Be warm, be safe, be kind.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Usually we do a SpongeBob Take Us Home, but I don't want my computer to whatever happened earlier. I don't want it to happen again, so I'm not playing any music to go out. I'll put it into the podcast. And actually, we're going to rebroadcast this show over on Facebook. I'm going to edit it down and get it all up, and we'll rebroadcast it live. So those listening to the podcast, do me a favor, SpongeBob.
Well, see you next Tuesday.
Thanks for tuning into the booth at Whoobazoo.com. Please make sure to tune in for more Booth next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. New York Eastern Standard Time. Become a fan on their Facebook page and check out their podcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. The Booth is a Sinister One production hosted by Sinister One, Ken Diesel, and RSquared.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Whoobazoo!